Welcome to another show of the Ubrick Show. And in fact, today it's pretty exciting because we have a completely new guest with us, our Ashwin. So, Ashwin is our account director. He heads things like strategy. And we're going to talk about something totally different, which has been we were not been covering earlier, which is B2B, business to business, and how can we solve problems for that. So, Ashwin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy. I am super excited, and I'm looking forward to how I can, be of help and try to provide value. So I'm excited, and let's see where this takes us. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I think the first step for us, or why we're today, is to discuss topic number one on the B2B perspective, which is trying to understand how the B2B buying process has changed in this post pandemic era that we're in. And has this reflected on your marketing and sales strategy?
I
Yeah.
think very interesting. The thing is, this is one sector we keep talking to, and we clearly understand that there is a need for change. Yeah, just because B2B, the vehicles, the elements they were using, which is mainly more sales driven activities, people going out there, meeting more people, like from a sales activity, or it's industry publications that they invest in, and things like trade shows. All these are giving diminishing results. I'm sorry, diminishing results. Yeah.
Exactly. Point well taken. Now, the focus is why. The why, yeah. Why are these giving us diminishing results? And I think what's very clear is the buying pattern of our prospects, and what they've started doing is spending a lot of time online. Now when they say they, it's both you and I as well, yeah, because in our decisions, in the time that we have, what is the effective time that we actually spend talking to a potential supplier? Was this spending our time looking at solutions online, or having conversations with a buying group? Now, what's a buying group? Now, I remember probably a couple of months back, we were trying to get introduced to a tool called Monday, which is a project management tool. And when I wanted to take a decision to purchase that tool for the operations of Ubrick, I realized that it's not just me, but I have stakeholders within the team, which is the operations team, the advertisement team, the creative team, and the content team, looking at the tool and trying to leverage the tool. And not just that, I had to talk to my HR and be like, hey man, is this worth it for our team? The procurement guy to understand the financials of the problem, and then to Monash and Shreyaf as well, the guys within the leaders in the company, to see whether the solutions that they are looking for fits into the problem well. So I think there are multiple equations into the system. The first step is the guys are spending more time researching online. Now, when I mean more time, they only spend, according to a recent Gartner report, a B2B report, where they've discussed with sales and marketing managers out there, only 17% of their overall time they spend in talking to potential suppliers. Yeah.
Wow.
Which means the rest of the time, they're either independently researching.
Mhm.
Of course, they're going to the trade shows out there, they're going to the events out there as well, the offline events. And the other perspective is also meeting within the buyer groups.
And having consensus, yeah, in between.
Exactly. And having consensus to be able to say, having a lot of validation. Hey, I was looking into this. Does this make sense to you?
Mm.
Yeah.
Wait. So Ashwin, so you're basically telling us that according to this report, it's only 17% of the time that they actually spend talking to suppliers. So if I need a project management tool, my 17% is split across say 4 or 5 options that I have. Is that what
Yeah, true. Split across multiple suppliers. Yeah, which means that where you probably have a couple of hours of attention with the customer when they're able to either try to solve a problem or try to pick a solution. Yeah, at both angles, you'll have to sort of educate them and be at a stage where they have enough confidence and conviction about their purchase with your brand.
Wow. I think this is pretty interesting because, so imagine 10 years back, yeah, and we have an office here, yeah, and we wanted to probably expand it to the next office. My course of action would be I would talk to the supplier who did my office. I would give him a call and tell him, you know what, please come down. I think we have an option to open the other office and get them joined in. Why don't you give us a solution for it? So he would come in a lot earlier in the journey. Yeah. But versus now, where I would tell somebody or I would go online and find multiple solutions how this can be done. With a couple of clicks, I'll have 4 different people to come across and give you advice.
Exactly. Couple of clicks, 4 different people. Almost 80% of the buyers out there spend their time looking at multiple suppliers, more than 2 to 7 suppliers. Yeah. And they spend 80% of their overall time looking at their website, looking at their social platform, trying to start having conversations with them, but not really start having conversations, but to dig deeper into their problem. Yeah, that's what they spend time in. Almost every single buyer out there for B2B start with a search, which means that you have to be on Google search, either via scaling your SEO, trying to be on the top 10 results, or throwing in an advertisement there and being in front of him when they look for a problem out there.
Brilliant. So basically, to summarize, the behavior of the buyer is completely changed, and the control as a supplier that you have is a percentage of that 17% of the time. That's all.
Absolutely. And within that, to be able to drive conversations and try to position yourself, and now that's the relevance of online, right? Or the virtual element that's driven through the entire conversations for the last 1.5 years. Even the meetings that you see, you're able to see a lot of I would call them leapfroggers, somebody who've not yet started their journey with digital and are still trying to explore the avenues. That number has dramatically increased from what it was about a year and a half back, because they've been using a lot of solutions online as well. Yeah, their kids are using Zoom classes. They are online looking at virtual gyms and trying to get in touch with trainers to be fit. So they realize, I think that there's a good transition. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. Now, the other perspective here is to not just customers being online, but also for the fact that again, from taking glimpses from the report, almost 77% of the buyers out there feel that their last buying journey was extremely complex.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The reason why let's try to understand why it's complex. Now, like I mentioned earlier, when our procurement wanted to buy an office printer, he quickly started discussing with the teams, and he realized that everybody had their own set of requirements. The HR wanted to get a device that could also help with scanning. And then the development was like, if the HR can scan data, why don't we store that data within cloud to be able to understand and leverage that data better? Yeah, for example, we have a ton of contracts. We want to be able to scan the contract, get the contract dates, get the contract deliverables, get the contract pricing and the authority of the contract, so that you're able to put that into files and you're able to create a reminder that, okay, before the contract expires, I need to have a conversation with them. That's important for customer service. Now, the first problem was, hey, our office printer is not working and we'll have to fix it. But after talking to multiple departments and teams, you realize that your requirements have been more fine-tuned, and they come up with solutions as well, because they are also researching for this, because their own problems. So they're also trying to find solutions. So you have multiple stakeholders, almost 6 to 10 stakeholders with different types of solutions, 2 to 3 solutions of their own choices. Now the procurement guy is thinking, my God, I need to talk to 8 to 10 different suppliers. He's just not going to talk to them. He's going to go online, check out what they have, understand what they do, and whether they're solving the problem really well. And if that happens, only then he's going to shortlist about 3 to 4, but he's actually going to have a conversation. So this buying pattern or this buying behavior has become extremely difficult. Now,
So this is like there are too many chefs putting the recipe together,
exactly.
which means sometimes the goalpost gets moved because of a new requirement coming in, and so I understand. And another example is probably when you go to a candy store, yeah, and there's only 10 choices, probably easy to make, yeah, but with so many supplies, with so many nuances of functions coming on being the printer, there are too many supplies out there. yeah?
Exactly.
So too many requirements to be matched with too many suppliers.
Exactly.
Very logical, yeah.
So I think that's where what happens is, so we're able to understand. So let's just refine the problem a little better. So we're talking about how the post-pandemic, I wouldn't say post-pandemic, but you guys know what it is. The era is sort of shifted in the buying behavior. We see that not just the buying journey being complex, we also see the number of buyers in the equation are also, number of stakeholders involved are also really, they want to share in the voice, in their voice to be heard. But not just that, also for the fact that the number of the buying behavior going online. So that's the focus of what the problem is all about. So now that we've sort of understood where we are with the problem, we need to dive into what the fundamentals of the solution could be. And I think the fundamentals is the key word here. So go for it.
Yeah, so understanding the problem is definitely there, but in terms of solution, this is something that we can take practically and get them implemented. Yeah, so we definitely started talking about how buying has become complex. So if we can probably dive a little deeper and find out what are the different stages, what are the different roles, and especially a B2B buyer goes through, I think this is that fundamentally you're talking about.
No, absolutely. So now, what Gartner has done recently, again with the whole, now I'm referring to Gartner because these guys have done a lot of research. They spend time talking to potential sales and marketing and customers and try to understand their problems better. So it's good to reflect on a solution that's sort of a benchmark to how perspectives are about sales and marketing. Yeah, that's why Gartner. Now, diving into the buying journey, what Gartner has done is they've identified 6 different buying jobs. Yeah. Now, these buying jobs, now there are, okay, like I mentioned, 6. The first step is to be able to understand, is the problem identification step, which is, hey guys, I think there's a problem out there. Yeah. The second step is solution exploration, which is, I have a problem. How do I figure out how to solve this problem? Not find solution, but how do I figure out my problem better? That's a solution where they dive deep into their solution, but actually their ability to understand the problem better becomes more critical. And then you have a stage where there's a lot of requirement building, which is, now that I've looked at my solution, I can go back to my problem and be like, hey, guess what? These are the top 10, top 15, top 20 things that I need, or features that I require, or solutions that I need that can solve my problem.
So I think this is the stage where we hear the word RFQ, RFP comes into place. Yeah. So
Exactly. Where they put together a bunch of requirements. Now, I wish the RFPs were way better than what we're receiving. If the RFP that we're receiving is what you're talking about, I think they have a long way to go. But I think that's a brilliant example, because how an RFP is put together is by consulting with multiple stakeholders to understand this is the problem that we have, and this is a probable solution that we're looking for. Now, with the suppliers in the RFP process, the solution may be way more amplified
And
or
I think that's where the fourth job comes in, which is supplier identification and making sure the suppliers come in.
exactly. And that's the fourth job. It's the fourth job where they try to go and identify suppliers. Now, in parallel, what are these guys doing? That's also important. Now, we spoke about the four critical jobs, which is almost like a journey. But in parallel, they're also doing a lot of validation. They're also running after trying to understand, hey, guess what? I've read something. Does that make sense? I observed this. Is this of value? That's the whole consensus element. And
So this is where the people we have talked about before, the buying groups, come together, and they would argue, they would debate, they would make sure that the solution is right for multiple departments, multiple stakeholders.
Absolutely. So that's why the lead in the project is extremely critical, yeah, because he or she is going out there looking for consensus, looking for validation across multiple functions to see if the requirements gathered is way more solid and the solution to be provided is a path that they want to have conversations with the suppliers. Now, at this stage, if a supplier is potentially able to reach out to the customer at the stage of problem identification,
he has a lot more chance to basically dictate how the solutions could be actually crafted or architected.
exactly, because now what we're doing, this is leadership content, yeah, this is content that has value. Leadership or not is left for you guys to decide, but it's content of value. So when you provide content of value, now you might spend some time understanding the content. Yeah. Now the things that we talk here might strike a chord with our potential customers for sure, with our current customers for sure, but it also leads a conversation to our potential prospects because we're discussing similar problems that they have within their environment of scope. Yeah. So leadership content is one such way. A ton of blogs out there. The material that HubSpot produces, I'm sure all the marketing and the sales guys know out there. Recently, I read a blog, an article about market sizing. And that is not what a marketer would require, but it's a CEO kind of content, or but it's still very relevant to their target audience because they understand for small medium businesses the CEOs take control of conversations, or they have a more decision making authority. And one of their problems is to expand their product or solution.
So Ashwin, what we have done is we have identified, or the first step is to identify those 6 jobs.
Yep.
And the second step is probably as suppliers, as somebody who's selling to the B2B space, you have to make sure that as a company, what can you do to help somebody solve job number 1, job number 2, job number 3, job number 4, things like that.
Fantastic. I think you nailed it on the head. I think as a business, as marketing and sales, it's important to understand if you get your customer early, then their ability to have more conversations with your brand is more solid. Whereas if you're at the supplier selection phase, you're just one among the alternatives. But the kind of content that you produce, if it is of value, at the stage where they're actually interested in the problem, that's when you sort of have more authority in driving more conversations because he's seen your brand. He's already started. He reads a piece of content, or he watches a piece of content that is relevant for him, that will help him solve his problem. Maybe not today, but probably 6 months from now. But he knows your brand already.
So to give an example is, say, imagine the problem is you need to find an CRM solution. Yeah. And this and probably the solution exploration is, okay, what are the different elements the CRM should have? Yeah. And then you put an RFP together, or the requirement sheet together with your multiple people. Yeah. You bring your sales, you bring in your marketing, you bring in your customer service, you bring in your front desk people, and guys, we are thinking to move away from Excel sheets and to have some kind of a system in place. We think it's called the CRM or the ERP or whatever. So and then you try to look for suppliers. But at any of the stage, when there are questions like, okay, you know what, which is the best CRM to go for, and I would key that on a search engine like Google, or I would go to YouTube and try to look at, educate myself what a CRM is. If your brand can actually give value at that particular stage, yeah, that is as early as possible, you get into the conversation. So they know your brand. They know that the information I've got has been a lot of value to me, because which, you know what, when I have the supplier is being chosen, number one, I would choose them. Number two, I would give a lot more preference, because as humans, we're both emotionally and rationally driven. Yeah, B2B is a lot more rational, but there's always that emotional brand connect which is there. So somebody who's helped you solve the problem, you perceive them as a lot more superior.
You start building relationships with the brand ideally. And that's what Zoho and HubSpot does. Zoho, for example, I'm sure you guys would have the industry here within UAE would have definitely come across Zoho. Yeah, they're out there trying to discuss problems. I know a ton of events where people have gone to with Zoho. I know a lot of content that they produce. They put a lot of advertisements out there. So they are there in the media highlight right now. They release a lot of PR news to the world. You can read on Gulf News or on College Times or entrepreneur.com or all of these places. So very, very active. So you're able to see that, you're able to have a conversation with the brand earlier in their journey. But I want to go back to what you said earlier, where you said job number 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the point of discussion moving forward, which is, are these buying jobs linear?
No, definitely. I mean, it's not a checklist, because when we were choosing a solution for what do you call project management, we went up and down. I mean, we chose, you know what, we would probably use this one, this feature is missing there.
Exactly. Which means the buying journey is never linear. I think we got to understand the fact that it's not like an e-commerce purchase where there's awareness, consideration, decision. It's not that way. This is more of multiple hats involved, multiple stakeholders involved, stakeholders having their own information with them, meeting with their own potential suppliers, whereas you have project leads who are responsible for downloading relevant material that they consume online, which is white papers, ebooks, or probably watching an hour of webinar. And then at the same time going and discussing on a table where somebody is like, I think I want something else, where they have to go back again and go back to your requirement stage. So at the supplier selection stage, you're like, maybe this is not what I want. Maybe I'm looking for something similar, but I want this capability as well. Then you have to go 2 steps back, 3 steps back, go back to that stage where you were again looking at your solution, identifying your problem and building your requirements better. Yeah.
No, it completely makes sense, because even in when we thought the process was linear, yeah, practically it was not, because when we used to receive RFPs, we give a quotation, we give a solution, they might come back and tell you, guys, the RFP has changed, and we know, oh my god, that is quite frustrating, because now you've built a strategy around the RFP and this is a new equation. So now we understand, because there are multiple conversations and people keep on contributing to refining the problem, and,
absolutely,
and then the solution identification, etc. So because of this non-linear process, as suppliers we get frustrated, but I think it's very natural, it's very human behavior.
Yeah, it's the progression as part of the buyer's journey. That is why it is important to be able to create a touch point at multiple stages with your buyer, so that if you have a piece of content or you have some information that can reach out to the buyer and give that aha moment at the problem stage or at the solution stage or at the requirement stage even, then at a very, very high chance for a conversion. And that's what we do with some of our clients right now. Yeah, with our capabilities of not just looking at one channel, but an omni-channel approach, and looking at a strategy per se, which we will cover in our upcoming episodes as to how to take this up and build an executable strategy. But that's what we're looking for. We're not just looking at targeting one single focus channel or focus point, but to be able to deliver content that will solve problems for your buyers across the buyer's journey.
Man, I want to pause you there because I think this is the fundamental shift that we are trying to make is focus on the buyer's problems, pains, aspirations.
True.
Because few years back, if you go into a trade show or even today, you find a piece of paper which is they call the brochure. It contains not buyer's problems but specifications of your product. It could be the speed, it could be the RPM, it could be depending on what your stuff is. So it's
You're
basically
killing me, man.
describing your solution more in detail. Yeah. But the emphasis as marketing that we would focus on the buyer is very less. All that is handed over to somebody called the sales department who
Yeah.
are supposed to build rapport, understand the problem, find solution, etc., etc.
Which means that the best people to talk about, to understand more about your buyers. If marketing has to solve a problem, do a survey with your customers, prospective customers, your current customers, great. But also talk to your sales team. Don't live in silos, yeah?
And just to keep the train of thought is, if this is an approach, what happens is it's only 17% of a buyer's time that he spends talking to suppliers. Imagine there are 3 suppliers divided by 3. That is what your sales person is getting.
Yeah.
But if you can understand his problem, your marketing can go in a lot more earlier.
True.
Yeah. And influence, help, educate, I don't know, entertain. All the stuff could be done with the potential buyer. Man, I think this is the
Absolutely.
fundamental shift we're trying to do. Like post-pandemic, it's about understanding your buyer as much as possible and enabling him with the right tools. Basically, it's knowledge that we've always had, but you've kept it for the last moment. Now you need to bring it all the way.
Exactly.
different.
Exactly. It's setting your building blocks right. It's setting your fundamentals corrected, sort of. Not even corrected, like just discussed and be on the same page. Yeah.
I think this reminds me of Brian Halligan, now the CEO of HubSpot. Marketing shifted from having a fat wallet, yeah, that is making sure that you get that space on the industry publications or the big stand on the trade show, versus the depth of your brain or the power of your brain, where now you're building solutions and you're creating a very simple blog which cost you few few dollars compared to few thousands of dollars, but that is actually moving the needle further.
Absolutely. And just we've mentioned this already, but I just want to take a sort of a cut on this, because the other side of the equation is also buyer enablement, which is at every stage of the job. Now we spoke about value, we spoke about content, we spoke about what will help potential buyers at every stage at doing their job. If you're able to understand as a business, what is that job, what are they trying to do, and how can you be of help to be able to solve that job for them successfully, I think that is where you will actually have an impact with your potential buyer. And that's the buyer enablement process, which is at every stage, at the problem identification stage, the solution exploration stage, the requirements gathering stage, and the suppliers selection stage, across every single buyer. So for example, if you're selling a platform, it could be probably for a platform like, let's say, a project management tool. It could be for the project manager, but you have to also have relevant content, information, blogs, videos, however you put it, also for the HR, also for the procurement team,
buying
also
groups.
for the buying group, because they are out there consuming multiple pieces of information as well. So this is the equation. You have multiple buyers, yeah, buying groups. You have a buying process that is not linear. You have buying jobs where you understand what are these jobs at your each stage in their journey. And if you're able to build content that will help enable the jobs from one stage to another, I think you're moving one step ahead as a brand to be able to have better conversations with your customers. Yeah.
Ashwin, I think brilliant. I think this puts a lot of fundamentals in place, and
Solid.
I think this was good conversation, guys. And if you've found value, make sure that you like and you like these videos and subscribe.
Absolutely.
And we'll bring more value about B2B very, very soon. Thank you, guys, and thanks for being here.
Cheers, guys. Good day.